Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody. It's training camp day here on Birds 365 as the Eagles will report for training camp today on a Tuesday edition of the show. I hope everybody's having a great morning. I know the Eagles are on the horizon, and that has you guys all feeling pretty good. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen. John, the 2026 football season is just about here, my friend. Another year for the Eagles, another year for you, another year for Birds 365. I'm ready to get this show on the road.
Yeah, by the way, I just noticed today we're creeping up on 1,500. 1,500. We're at 1,488.
Man, they add up quick. I feel like not that long ago you were saying 1,000.
Yeah. Now, I never know when they populate the podcast, so it might be 1,480, but somewhere in that range, 1,488. So we'll hit 1,500 during training camp. I got to figure out when, but 1,500. So thanks, everybody. We're getting there.
No doubt, John. That's a lot of freaking shows, dude. That's a lot of shows. So well done by you. Well done all the people of JAKIB Nation and all the Birds 365 supporters. John, some of the people here, I don't know that all of them, but some of the people here have been here for almost all, or at least since the beginning of those 1,500 shows. That's pretty amazing. So we appreciate our great community. We obviously would not be up to 1,500 shows if we did not have a great group of listeners. So we do appreciate all of you guys. Don't forget to hit that like button for us. Share the show out to help us keep growing so we can get the next 1,500 shows done. We appreciate all of you guys for doing it. Johnny Mac, the Eagles report to training camp today. Pretty amazing, John, that the season is upon us in a way. What's the schedule looking like this week for this football team? I know tomorrow will be our first day where we don't have the same schedule in the morning, obviously, due to the practice and you going down there, obviously, credential day as well.
Yeah. So tomorrow, I don't know what you're doing in the morning, if you're going to hop on for a little bit, but obviously we'll do a show later in the day after practice, after everything wraps up. Same thing on Thursday. Got to think about what day it is. Friday, they're going to have a walkthrough. So we'll have a normal Birds 365 show at 8 in the morning, what you're used to. And it'll jockey back and forth when there's off days or walkthrough days. We'll do the regular 8 to 10. When there's morning practice, I'll check in with you when I'm driving down there. Tomorrow a little bit different because I got to get there so early for credential day. So that'll be the only shift. And I don't know if you're going to hop on anyway, Zander, but I assume so. So
yeah, I'll do something in the morning for sure. I'll be here.
All right, so you can tune in, and Zander will take you through that, and we'll be up and running, ready to go. Training camp is here. Yeah, it's full time. I gotta do the math. It's number 11 for me covering the Eagles full time, 13th, 14th overall. And overall in my career, probably closing in on 30 different training camps. Which just tells you I'm old.
That's pretty amazing.
And there's a lot, Peter King's got a new book that's coming out called The Game. And I just been delving into the first couple chapters, really interesting stories. Nobody has more stories than Peter King. So when it does come out, I highly recommend it. Yeah. And he's telling stories early in his career. He's a beat writer for the Bengals. And, he just went and picked up Boomer Esiason at the airport when he got drafted. And he's like, hey, you want to ride? And he's in the car with Boomer Esiason. The difference, how this sport has grown is astonishing. And you forget, and I tell a lot of old time stories as well. You forget how different it was, and guys lugging in. For local people, they'll remember when the Eagles all the way back at training camp at Westchester University, and they would lug old Schmidt Hall, they would have to bring their own air conditioners. I asked Mike Quick about that one day, and they lived there for a month and 2 days, and obviously Spartan-like conditions. Can you imagine NFL players today going into an old school college dorm with no air conditioning?
That would never happen nowadays.
You had to bring your own TVs, anything you want, any amenities you want. It's like moving in. It's like they were college kids moving.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, things have changed dramatically. And now you have these pristine facilities around the NFL. The Eagles are finally improving on the Jefferson Health Training Complex.
Have they done any improvements other than changing the name?
Well, they've got a $4 million grant to improve. They're gonna, the NovaCare. For those who don't know, NovaCare used to have like a connected to the facility, a legitimate rehab place that patients would go to, and they've moved out. And so to have that extra room, they're going to expand the locker room, which is, I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's long overdue that they expand the locker room, and they're going to make, a lot of amenities. So things are looking up on that front, at least for the short term.
Yep, no doubt about it, John. All right, good stuff here, John. Real quick, one more question on it as you talk about some of the I don't want to call it reminiscing, but on the career that you've built. A credit to you. Do you like covering football more than you liked covering basketball, which was another sport that you covered very up close and for an extended period of time?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because for those who don't know, basketball is actually my favorite sport when I was younger. I would say by a wide margin. And I do enjoy basketball. But no, I like the NFL better because it's more relevant. It's more important. More people pay attention. It's king of the hill. And it is. So from that standpoint, yeah, I enjoy being in the NFL more. But when I was covering the NBA for that short period, I really enjoyed it. I really dove into it. I really, it's a lot of fun watching LeBron going to finals. And, I went to the Mavericks Heat finals where they upset him and Dirk had that great game. And boy, Lakers, Celtics, where, poor Khloe Kardashian got the ugly sister chance at Boston's brutal, man. Brutal.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so it was a lot of fun, but the NFL is number one by a wide margin.
Yeah, everybody obviously you want to get the big story, right, John? That's kind of the reporter or perspective, I guess you would say. And the NFL is the big story. All right, good stuff, John. Getting into training camp here now for the Philadelphia Eagles in hour number 2. We're going to talk to Caden Steele, see what he has to say. I assume he'll be down there for training camp as well. I'm not. NJ has a couple different people.
Yeah, he'll be there. He'll be there.
So Caden will be down there. We'll talk to him, and then we'll probably keep touching back with Caden or talking back with Caden to see what he thinks of the training camp as it unfolds. But a lot of storylines, John, still around this football team heading into camp. The obvious ones being that offense and everything around that. But I also think another big one here is just the Jalen Carter story going into camp here. What are you expecting to see with Jalen Carter, John? Are you expecting him to be out there competing? Are you still thinking a hold-in is likely or probable? I'm not sure if you've heard anything of intel that you can share on that situation, but what are you expecting to see from the Eagles star defensive tackle this training camp?
Well, they're reporting today, so, Howie likes to make splashes, so, this would be a potential crux point. Everything's fine. But, if he is going to report, he's not going to hold out, for those who don't understand the rules of the NFL now. The only question from there is, if there is no extension, does he do the hold in? And, That's probably what went on in the spring when he showed up for mandatory minicamp and he didn't practice, didn't do any team drills. But you can hide behind the subterfuge of the shoulder issues and say, well, he needs a little bit more time. But the main crux of the point is not so much a hold in for a week or two. But as we get down there and get feet on the ground, you get a better indication of are there legitimate negotiations, or have the Eagles reached the point where they said, look, we need to see more play this season, sort of like they did with Jordan Davis. And that's easy to say, but that creates a Pandora's box as well. You just saw across the league, you're going to see news popping out, some interesting news yesterday, most notably Vita Vea asked for a trade. Guess why Vita Vea asked for a trade, Zander?
Right.
Jordan Davis got paid. That's why Vita wants more money.
Exactly right.
And now he wants a trade, and that's the leverage you have. So you don't have a lot of leverage when you're under contract, and he makes a lot of money to begin with, Vita Vea, but so he's using this opportunity as a point to get. He evidently he wants to be on the West Coast or the Raiders, I've heard, which would be interesting for them, obviously. So these things, that's the leverage Jalen Carter and Drew Rosenhaus have. Request a trade, and if it goes that route, then it gets really interesting. But
do you think it will reach that point? Like, for example, if Howie doesn't give him the deal this year, do you think they would go that far right now?
I mean, Drew's Drew. He'll use any leverage he can use. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. And, the Eagles could still play hard line and say, no, we're not going to trade you. But again, that's easy to say. And then you have an unhappy person in the locker room and all that kind of stuff. So building an NFL team isn't easy because you have all these problems you have to deal with. And, the presumption, and I get it from the fan bases, well, you got to pay him. You got to pay everybody. You got to pay this guy. You got to pay that guy. It's just not realistic. And when you start having questions, and I think the Eagles' questions on Jalen Carter are legitimate questions. I don't think they're, and this is an organization that has proven it will pay for big-time talent. It will set the market for big-time talent. And from their actions, it seems like, they'll get a deal done if it's team friendly, and if not, they'll wait and they'll be willing to pay what I call the Jerry Jones tax. If he has an all-pro season, they're going to have to pay more. But they have enough questions where I think it's...
Yeah, they're willing to pay more if they need to.
Yeah.
To answer the questions.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with them. I mean, I think obviously Carter's the type of talent that you want to, bank on that upside. But I do understand where they're coming from for his first 3 seasons. John, my question to you on, some of the, I guess you would call it procedural things that Jalen Carter needed for his shoulders. I'm not sure how much of a decision he had or how many options there were. You would probably know more about that than me. Did he not get a surgery when he maybe could have or should have? I know he got that PRP treatment. He had a minor procedure last year in December. We all remember that, late in the season last year. And then I believe, as I mentioned, it was PRP this offseason. Was there some sort of bigger surgery that he could have gotten that might have had a longer recovery timeline, but would have set him up better in the long term? Has that complicated this contract situation at all, or anything about that?
No, the only thing that's been revealed with Jalen from a health standpoint is the PRP treatment, and that's what he got in December. And those are just injections in the shoulder. It's not surgery. A lot of people have called it surgery. And And that was why he was out for a month, and he came back and he looked a little bit better. But it wasn't a great year at that point. I'm not aware of anything he's had in the off season, but he hasn't spoken to us. So, all we can do is look at his Ben Simmons like videos of him working out in South Jersey. He is lifting significant weight, so the shoulders are feeling better. When it comes to surgery, I mean, there's usually not a back and forth. Either you need surgery or you don't. And if it's just persistent pain versus, a torn labrum or a torn rotator cuff, like you have a rotator, you got to get surgery. That is, and all we've gotten to this point is persistent pain, and that's where the PRP treatment came into it. Which a lot of athletes swear by, and maybe it helped. I think, to be honest, I think rest is probably what helped him more, and not getting beat up every weekend. Remember the Super Bowl season, he played more snaps than anybody else from an interior defensive lineman perspective. So I think he was beat up coming off the Super Bowl. He continued at that high level of snap count until he was shut down. Still would have been on pace to play more than anybody else. So I think the Eagles maybe have to be a little bit more disciplined. You don't like to have somebody like that off the field, but, be more disciplined in the first half and say, all right, we got to go with Morrow for this series, no matter what, or we have to go even deeper to Byron Young or Ty Robinson. You are going to have a lot of bodies at defensive tackle. I think they need to manage his snap count a little bit more, make sure he's ready for the fourth quarter, and then don't take him off the field.
I mean, is that a thing where you're like, good luck telling Vic Fangio that, because he's
pretty much. I mean, I went through this all. I tell it all the time with Jim Schwartz. Jim would say it all the time. He's like, we have to, take the load off Fletcher Cox.
Right, and then the game comes, and you need Fletcher Cox on the field to go and win the game.
Exactly. So it is tough. It's a lot. I've been saying that a lot already in this show. All this stuff is easier said than done. In the off season, everything's great. We can do this. We'll be more disciplined. Even in bigger picture things, like we talk about the scheme all the time. Well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then the games come and you get punched in the face and you're like, what are we, and then you just revert back to your DNA.
Exactly. Well, I just wonder about how that might have complicated it, because, with the potential of the contract looming, does that change the decision that the agent and the player could make in terms of this? Now, I'm not saying you needed surgery. I think you bring up a good point. A lot of times, like, if you need surgery, it's not like a debated thing. You go and get the surgery, but he did have the problems that he had with the shoulders, and he did get that, I don't know, what was it called? The micro procedure or something? Last year, I forget what it was. The minor procedures, they called them, or whatever. So he does have, it is to the point where they needed something, if the contract wasn't looming, does Jalen Carter say, let me get this shoulder operated on, so I got a better long-term, ability in this league? I don't know. I'm just wondering if that contract muddied it a little bit for him and the agent.
I mean, I don't know. The only thing I'm aware with Jalen Carter is the PRP treatment. I think you might be conflating the minor procedure with Jihad Campbell. I don't know. I could have missed something, but that's all I'm aware of. Jihad had a minor.
Wait, are they the same thing? Is that what I'm doing? Was the minor treatments in December of 25?
The minor treatment in December was PRP. That was
right.
PRP.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm conflating the two. So that's the procedure.
Yeah. Which is not surgery. That's just injections into the shoulder. Jihad had surgery on his shoulder, and it was the opposite shoulder as he had. And that was one of his issues coming out of Alabama, why he fell in the draft, because people had long-term concerns over his shoulders. So it's something to keep an eye on with Jihad, but he seems fine. I saw him. He was at minicamp. He wasn't participating, but he seems fine. They were just being cautious. But yeah, so I think all I'm aware with Jalen Carter is he had PRP injections in December. Well, I don't know the exact date, but when he sat out for a month last year. I am not aware of anything he had in the off season. It's not to say somebody else did report something, but I missed it if that happened. And we haven't gotten to speak to him. So that it'll be one of the first questions he gets when he does talk will be his shoulders and, what's going on with them and where he is with them. Hopefully that happens at some point during training camp. But if he starts on the PUP list, for instance, and he's not practicing, he doesn't have to talk. So, but you're going to get that speculation. Other people are going to be asked. People behind the scenes are going to be asked. It'll become clear if it's a hold in or if it's legitimately. And by the way, I think if it's legitimately problems with the shoulder, that's a bigger problem than the hold in. If he's legitimately still having issues,
you'd almost rather him hold in over a contract and then have they continue the shoulder.
Oh yeah, it's not even close as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what's going to happen with him. I have a hard time believing, John, that the approach, will be stuck to on what you said about, load in a way, for lack of a better word, load managing him. It just feels to me like the games are going to come exactly as Jim Schwartz explained it to you. And Vic Fangio is going to put Jalen Carter on the field, and he's going to have a high snap count once again. So I hope those shoulders are good. I think that's what the Eagles are waiting to see before they give out the contract. Maybe it comes. Would you put a number on it, a John McMullen number on it coming before the season starts? Is it 50-50? Is it much less?
Today, low, I would say, but it's possible. They like to make splashes for training camp. They got to take the back page back from LeBron, so they might try to do something.
Right.
But I would say it's low today. Before the season starts, they like to get extensions done the week before the season starts. There's more likelihood of that. But if they were all in on Jalen Carter and willing to set the market, it'd already be done. I mean, it would that indicates to me that they want to wait. And I could be wrong, but their history is when there are no questions, they're going to be proactive.
The deal gets done.
Yeah. So.
And in a way, they already missed the boat a little bit just because Jeffrey Simmons got paid. So they had the chance to get ahead of that, and they didn't. So maybe that does tell you all you need to know. We'll find out a little bit more about that. John, everything coming up here. You have first practice. They report today, everybody. So the Eagles report to training camp today. Their first training camp practice will be tomorrow. And then the schedule this week, John, I believe you said it was Wednesday and Thursday, you'll be down there for practice. Friday, the team is a walkthrough. Saturday, you'll be down there for practice. Sunday, they are off, right? And then back on Monday,
Correct.
I would assume?
Correct.
All right, so that's the next couple of days. And then you have first preseason games August 15th. Joint practice with New England is the 19th and the 20th of August. The second preseason game versus the Patriots is the 22nd. So 2 days after that second joint practice ends. There's a public practice. There is a public practice this year. A lot of you guys like to go to that. I think it's $10 or $15 to go down there. It's August 25th at the Link. August 28th is preseason game number 3. And then August 30th is when the roster must be trimmed to 53 by 6 p.m. And then that season opener a couple weeks later, September 13th, season opener versus the Washington Commanders. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. It'll all be here very quick, everybody. John, continuing on the training camp talk with everybody reporting today, the offense is obviously story number one for this Eagles football team. I think even far and wide. I was actually speaking with my wife's grandma. Okay. If you guys can believe this. And the first thing she says to me, because, she's one of the people who likes to talk to me about what I do and the Eagles. And she's an old time Phillies fan type of person. And, she says, well, how about those Eagles? Is the offense going to be a little bit better this year, do you think? And so just goes to show you that is the kind of the story that permeates the top of the mind for most fans out there. Both people like the people listening right now who are P1, day one, 365 days a year Eagle fans, and also the people who are waiting for the games to come around. The offense has a lot of questions, John, and it will be very interesting to see how they respond and answer the bell.
Yeah, I think that's the story of the entire season. Basically, is the integration of Sean Mannion and a new offensive scheme into what has been a very successful environment. To be honest, not always the prettiest, but very successful over the long haul. And we've been through it for those around ad nauseum in the off season about why. And, some of those questions, I don't get the why to say, what Jalen Hurts always says he wants. Why are we doing this? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And I've been honest about that, at least with Jalen still being here. If you had a different style quarterback, it makes perfect sense. We aren't at that road yet for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it doesn't make the most sense to me, but this is the road that they have chosen, and that's going to be the story. There'll be other things. Jalen Carter, we just talked about, and his contract early in camp. But the main story throughout the season, and it's going to happen every week, what does the offense look like? What's wrong? What's going right? Are we pleasantly surprised? Is it even worse? Which is always a possibility.
Feels unlikely though, even for that, even without.
Does I've said, 17 guys they've interviewed. I said, I don't care who they hired of that 17. The offense is going to be better from the standpoint the players are. Everybody had a down season last year. That usually doesn't happen all at once. You have some guys who have better seasons, some guys who have worse seasons. That's the normal. Almost everybody, with the exception, as I said, about Devontae Smith, Tyler Steen, who wasn't a starter, almost everybody went backwards to a certain degree for different reasons, but to a certain degree. That usually doesn't happen like that. So a bunch of those guys are going to bounce back. It might be better health for Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson. It might be staying healthy for Lane Johnson. It might be just bouncing back and playing better for Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and players like that. So I do think it's going to be better, but I'm saying there is another option. I think people forget I could be wrong. It's a lot of aging veteran players. So, and who are being asked to do new things also, which is kind of strange, particularly for the quarterback at this stage of his career.
Yep, fair enough. John, obviously the other big thing, and you mentioned it, is not only the new offense and what they're going to look like with Sean Mannion, but, they did lose A.J. Brown. You've gotten used to watching A.J. Brown at camp, John. I remember you used to say that guy is just a good freaking player, him and Devontae Smith. It'll look a little different this year without A.J. Brown out there. I don't believe you have the same level of talent at the receiver position, which I think is a given. Maybe some more depth there at the back of the position with Dontavian Wicks and Lemon and Hollywood Brown. But that's obviously a big one to try and improve on the offense, and I think in particular the passing game to some extent, while also getting rid of who was the number one player in that passing game the last 3 years. That's going to be a tough thing to do. I don't think they can't do it, but I do think Sean Mannion has his work cut out for him. And I do wonder how that impacts also Jalen Hurts as well, who not only has to have a better season because of a contract looming for him, but also because of the new offense that he's trying to implement as well. There's new faces, new names, new talent levels, and a new offense. I think that complicates things a whole lot for Jalen Hurts, and that's obviously somewhere our sights are set. We're looking forward to seeing what you report or what you see from those receivers here in camp.
Yeah, but the AJ part of it is, training camp's going to be less fun. I can tell you that, because you would have these battles with AJ and Bradbury, which were always fun. People forget when Bradbury was really good. AJ and Slay. I remember when they drafted Quinyon, they made him cover AJ to get him up to speed. And those were some great battles and fun things when Quinyon is very quiet in front of the cameras, would start talking trash to him and say, hey, that was a trash route. I still remember that, because he's like, he doesn't say anything. And then he's talking shit to the best player on the team. And it gave you a little insight into Quinyon Mitchell early in his career. Well, you rewind to the spring, and it was like all the stories were Rick Woolen stories, completely shutting people down. Is that Rick Woolen showing off his immense skill set, or is that, the receivers aren't that good?
Right.
And to be truth, it's a little bit truthful. It's a little bit of both. You're not going to have Quinyon. Let's be honest. You're not going to hear about Quinyon struggling against Dontavian Wicks. You're not going to hear about Rick Woolen struggling against Elijah Moore or Hollywood Brown, probably. So, it's going to be harder, but again, the starting point is so low. And I think the important thing, and they're approaching that part of it correctly. It's not about being splashier in the passing game. It's about being more efficient, and that means being more efficient on first down, so third down's more manageable. That's their approach. They were 30th in the league,
right,
in third and yardage on third downs. Obviously, first in the league in 3 and outs. A lot of that is because of where they were on third down. They didn't have and nobody does. I point that all the time. If you're third and long, that's the goal of the defense. That's the goal of every defense in the NFL. And yes, there are offenses more equipped to overcome that. But even the best offenses don't overcome consistent third and longs. That's
simple
for any
football.
offense.
Right. You don't want to be a third and long.
Yeah. So that's the goal.
I agree with you, John. We'll see how that looks. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is going to be a big part of that on the early downs and that offensive line, as you mentioned there. John, how much of an impact, I would say a positive impact, but it could go either way. You can tell me. How much of an impact do you believe Sean Mannion will have on Jalen Hurts? Obviously, Sean is a former quarterback. Now, he obviously never reached where Jalen Hurts has reached in his career in terms of a pedigree and being a starting quarterback who's achieved what Jalen Hurts has achieved. The resume speaks for itself. But it is always good to get a guy who has played that position, who has been around great coaches, who has been around great offenses. And you've heard people talk about he's a real student of the game type of player who really dissected and learned offenses that he was a part of. I thought that was a good story about somebody, I forget who it was, that said, or maybe it was Sean himself who said, I always viewed the game like one day I want to coach the game, so that made me look at things a little bit differently. How much of an impact do you think that has on Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I know he sort of, intimated last season that, he almost has to take control because of all the turnover. And he's the constant. And this dating back to college as well. Not only offensive coordinators and play callers, but also quarterbacks, coaches. He's had so many of them. You know, it's almost like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to throw out everything you know, and you know, he's the constant. And I think that's been his mindset for 2 or 3 years now. So he knows there's going to be upheaval at this point. He, to his credit, he doesn't use it as an excuse. Some people think he does because he talks about it, but I think if you listen to what he says, it makes a lot of sense. Like he doesn't know who's going to be here a year from now, but he's probably going to be here. So, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to drastically change for the next flavor of the month, or are you going to stay to your? And that's why I have such a problem with this mindset. Is I don't believe you should build around the deficiencies of the quarterback, and that is a common sense statement, right?
It should be, but I do wonder if that's not how they perceive it. You know, I think you're right from maybe looking from this point of view, but like I don't think Jalen Hurts is thinking you're building around my deficiencies. I mean, I don't, you know, maybe he doesn't believe that. Obviously, you got to be smart enough to know, you know, where
people
you are
don't like that
wrong,
word, so
but
I'll change it to what the quarterback is uncomfortable with.
right.
And
But do you think Jalen feels as though they had to evolve?
Well, no, from his perspective, you're always evolving. So I think there's different mentality. Like too many people pick up the thesaurus if they have one, and they think change equals evolution. Doesn't doesn't guarantee.
Right, that's true.
You know, he's been evolving. If you look at him as a rookie starting quarterback, second year, but as a first year starter, from even to last year when he struggled, you see the difference in how much more he can do just from manipulating the position. It's night and day. There's a constant evolution. So I think the presumption that new or change equals evolution is incorrect. I always say, you know, with the word innovation, same thing. You know, new by definition, innovation is new, but not everything new is innovative. It could be shit. You look at it from a business perspective. How many businesses fail? You know, not everything new works. And what, you know, I chuckled when one analyst I heard, big time national guy, said, you know, the modern game is you got to play action. And then I'm reading Peter King talking about Boomer Esiason and play action 45 years ago. I mean, what are you talking about? Play action is modernizing offensive football. It's been around forever. So yeah, I think the conversation is kind of disjointed. Basically,
Sometimes it does feel like people try and overcomplicate the game of football, you know?
Well, I mean, people don't like it, but you're making it too difficult. It's not as difficult as you're making it. Getting third and manageable, and you'll be fine.
All right. How do you get to third and manageable? You got good players who play good and you execute the offense.
Well, I mean, it's boring, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
You know. But you know, the modern game has become, and this is even, you know, bleeds into coaching. Look, coaches have egos too. They want to be important. So people, we have this conversation. Like people are shocked when they say I don't think coaches are valuable, which is not the case. Just that personnel is more valuable. and every coach will tell you that when he's being honest. You could be Bill Walsh, you could be whomever, and be the best coach. And if you have 4-win talent, you might win 6 games, but you ain't winning 14. I'll take the bad coach with the talent. I'm looking at you, Barry Switzer, than the great coach with no talent. They might not win as many championships as they should. They might have some hiccups there and there, but give me the personnel all the time.
You just mentioned Barry Switzer there, the bad coach with the talent. A lot of Eagles fans think that's Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni's the bad coach with the talent. And obviously, he has the talent. I'm not smart enough to know how good of a coach Nick is. I give him a lot of credit because I've seen the way the team has been successful with him. But, boy, I get a lot of shit when I give Nick Sirianni credit on these programs, Johnny Mac. A lot of people think otherwise. A lot of people think he's very good.
I think that has more to do with his personality than anything else.
Well, I think there is some optics there as well in terms of, hired as an offensive coach. Play calling was given up early. There's been it's been a little boom or bust, where there's been great runs. And then there's also been what feels like collapses of the team. And I think that plays into it as well. I'm of the belief if you're going to shit on them for the downtimes, which you're allowed to, or the collapses, then you got to give them some credit for when they have great success. But other people believe that that's more coordinator based, and I don't know. I mean, that's just the way at least I think.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if you're, like, does anybody shit on Bill Parcells? I don't know. I don't think so. CEO coach. I talked to Tom Coughlin is the one. I've been a CEO coach guy since Tom Coughlin talked me into it years and years and years ago. Like I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, I think it was a positive that Nick essentially said during his rookie year, like everybody does, he's a little bit overwhelmed. Way bigger job. The one thing that every coach has told me, way bigger job than you expect going in, because you're used to being a coordinator. Coordinator is like a walk in a park. You got a specific job. Got these 87 ancillary duties. You got to from something as we start training camp. You got to script practice. You're the head coach. Offensive coordinator is just worried about the offense, trying to get his team better, trying to work on his. Then you got to deal with the media. Then you got to do all the TV stuff. Then you got to yada, yada, yada. You got to deal with contract stuff. Maybe you got to meet with how Jalen Carter's not going to be. Why is Jalen Carter not going to be? Well, we haven't gotten a contract done. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but you get the point. Like with Vita Vea. Well, yeah, can you imagine going into Todd Bowles? Hey, Vita has for a trade. What the fuck? They think they're going to win their division.
Right.
These are the things, and Parcells said it best, is, there are 5 things. He gives a list. He used to give a list of recommendations for his guys that became head coaches. And one of them was 5 things happen every day as an NFL head coach that you don't want to happen. And if you can't deal with that, get another job. What he was saying is stay a coordinator. So, somebody like that, who's a Hall of Fame coach, like nobody blinks an eye. Yeah, he's in charge of the whole thing. He's great. He's a Hall of Famer. For whatever reason, like one of the greatest things that I think Nick Sirianni did was recognize this job is too big. I got to scale back, hand it off to my, one of my best friends who's going to run my shit anyway. Off from there with Shane. I consider that a positive. I get most people consider that a negative. And he said and I'm having my daily flipping out. Is that my side, Zander?
No, I think it's you, John. I don't want to point the finger here in the internet world, but I think it's you. You're good though. You're back.
I'd like a 6-month run of no issues with.
Johnny Mac, the internet said, not today, folks. Not today. He'll be back. Give him a second. Give the internet a second. Sometimes it craps out. I'll drop him off. Give him a second here to come back. We'll see. We'll see when he just dropped off. There he is. He's back. He's back.
But this happens all day to me. You got these little drops.
I know.
I'm so fed up with. I don't want to criticize the company, so I'll make up a name. Xfinity. I'm fucking. That's a great John Mulaney joke. It's about Delta Airlines, though. He's like, I'll make up a name. Delta Airlines.
That is good.
I'll make up a name. Xfinity. Get your shit together. So I was talking about the CEO coach. I always thought that was, that was a feather in his cap to me, because I look at the Kyle Shanahan's and how many times does Kyle Shanahan, and I hope he gets better, and Kyle, I hope you're doing well. How many times has he fucked up game management situations? Like he's bogged down. Matt LaFleur last year, the Eagles are trying to copy him. Turning his back to the defense. I always that bothers me. You're the head football coach. At least pretend you're interested in the aspects that you're not. You're essentially, when you set it up that way, which people think is the proper way to do it, you essentially have co-head coaches. You're literally not paying attention.
Right. Who was that, John, that we saw? Was that LaFleur?
Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
And the case, well, Sean McVay's first year, Wade Phillips was the diva. They hired basically Wade to run the defense, which is no problem. I mean, Vic runs the defense here. If you hire a good defensive coordinator, you should let them go. But if you have to step in, you have to step in. Nick is not shy about stepping in. He stepped in last year. He stepped in last year with Jeff Stoutland. He is not shy to step in. And that's what a head coach can do. You can debate whether the decision is right, and you should. And by the way, people say I'm defending Nick Sirianni. Hey, you're the people that don't give him credit for hiring coaches. So why do you blame them when they fail? I'm telling you, no, he hires the coaches. So blame him. Hold him accountable. The perception out there that everything good is because of someone else and everything bad is because he's getting in the way is stupid. I don't know how I can try to dress it up nicely to put the baby ear people to bed, but that's stupid.
Well, what do you think? What do you think Nick has to improve on? Where would you say, from your perspective, he needs to evolve? We talk about the offense evolving. We talk about everybody else evolving. Where does the head coach, in your opinion, need to evolve and get better?
Well, you always evolve and get better, similar to quarterbacks. The more experience you get, the more situations you're in, and the better you handle them if they come up in the future. So One of the things he does better than most, and I say this all the time, because a lot of people default to how random turnovers are, especially analytics people. I'm as somebody who's attended 30 years of practices, I'm telling you, I have never seen any team drill ball security and strip circuits more than the Philadelphia Eagles, more than the Nick Sirianni Philadelphia Eagles. And I've seen Chip Kelly, and I've seen Doug Peterson, and I've seen other teams. Nobody does it as much. So when they have success with that, people say, well, that's just luck. Yeah, I mean, there's a certain random element to certain turnovers, no question, but they work hard at it. To the point of overwork, I think some people think. And certainly the risk averse nature, you can debate it on both sides. It certainly made them less explosive as well. But situational football is, I think, where you win in the NFL and you can always get better. But I mean, that's what he prides himself on. And that's where he's shown, and the Eagles have been ahead of the curve when it comes to situational football. But the more experience you have, the better you get at it. So it should only get better. But there's got to be a constant evolution. And that's everybody in their life. I mean, Zander, I'm sure when you took over the show, you've evolved just by, forget about trying. I'm sure
Right.
you tried to
By
evolve,
nature.
but just by osmosis.
Yeah, good point.
Repetition. So I mean that sort of me is baked into it. But I think there's fair like I've criticized him this year for making these changes, to be blunt. I don't get them. I don't get the why. He deserves the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just being honest. I don't get it. Not with this quarterback. If you want to go in a different direction, then go in a different direction. But that's obviously an organizational decision. But there's so much that comes into it. I talk about the politics of it all the time. Like, I think half of it is politics. And I think he's a very good political coach. Getting everybody on the same page, which is never possible. You saw it last year with AJ.
Yep.
But getting as many people on the same page as possible. And getting, I hate to use the word manipulate, but I'm going to use it, and I'm going to use it purposefully. Manipulating the owner to do the right things, especially in cities like Dallas, where they're very involved, and they shouldn't be very involved in football matters. Knock yourself out when it comes to business. So he's very politically savvy. That'll only get better, and that's where I'm waiting to see September 13th. He's saying all these things, he's doing all, and by the way, there's no, and I've said that consistently, there's no harm in trying to get Jalen Hurts more comfortable under center, more comfortable taking traditional drops, more comfortable with traditional play action. The more comfortable he gets with that, the better he'll be at it. There's no problem with that. The problem is when you build the offense around something that he hasn't done, or forget about the 7 years he's been here, whatever it is, dating back 11 years to his college work. That's the part I can't get over. And ultimately, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. There's going to be more of it, but I think they're still going to do plenty of what they did in the past. And people like, Sean Mannion himself has called the offense, it'll be a blended approach. He used that exact term, blended. Parks Frazier intimated the same thing. And Nick has also intimated it. So, you part of your job is being a politician as an NFL head coach. So you got to politic. Think about think about it from that political mindset. Whomever your lunatic fringe you're a fan of, because we have so many extremist people in politics. I think at the core, they know they're getting lied to. This is how they're framing it. Left, right, indifferent. You got to lie.
The sad truth, John, that you just said that, and that can't even be disputed.
Yeah. As an NFL head coach, you gotta prop up your constituency, your fan base. You gotta go on WIP, and you gotta put a happy face on, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and then you go out on Sunday and go win the football game, and everything is fine.
Yeah, it's true. Well, interesting stuff. We got a couple chats we'll read. We got Caden Steele coming up in about 20 minutes or so. I do want to talk a little defense. We'll do that. I got to thank a couple people. Tyler Braswell, member for 41 months. Tyler, thank you, brother. We appreciate it. That's a very long time. Almost our longest, and our longest is here. Check this out, John. Miguel Lara, member for 49 months. I mean, that is 4 years and 1 month, if I'm counting correctly. That's pretty incredible work right there, Miguel. Thank you for your support. He says, good morning, fellas. I've been here since day one, as evidenced by your membership. Thank you, Miguel. And here's Tony. What's up, Tony? Good to see you, brother. He says this, congrats, Z and J-Mac, for the upcoming 1,500 shows. Continue the great work and content. Thank you, Tony. We appreciate that very much. Thank you, brother. All right, good stuff, John. Good
day one-ish. Day one-ish. That's an Usos. That's a wrestling thing. I'm sure they're not people that were down from day one. I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's been here even before that, because we didn't have channel memberships at the very start. So you couldn't even have been a member then, So Miguel's been here a long time.
That's another one. I got all these merchandise. We got to get T-shirts going. Day one-ish Birds 365 for all the day one people.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get some of that going. General says, Z, any updates on the opener? General, I think there was an email sent out. We do have some updates, though. Let me see if I could pull it up real quick. We got the lot for where the tailgate will be. So I did share that up last week. I'd have to try and find it off the top here. I don't have it right here with me. But we got the lot for where the tailgate is. We gave out that information. So I'll kind of collect that on Zander time today, and I'll give you guys some more updates on the opener. But everything's coming together with it, General JD. We got a whole tailgate company that's helping us with all the food and everything. We got the lot picked out where we're going to be. It should be a pretty kick-ass home opener, season opener for the Eagles with everybody from JAKIB Nation. So we're looking forward to that, JD. I'll keep you posted on Zander time. Dill Lock, 440 joules, Unk alert. What's up, Dill? Thank you, brother. Here's Bird Gang 89. He says this, J-Mac's internet needs a break. It's being overworked because my man hasn't had a vacation. This is true. Man.
I don't know, man. I don't know what is going on, but I'm glad I ripped Xfinity. I had like a 6-month run where I didn't have one issue.
You got to give him a little slack. I mean, maybe it's just the internet.
Do I, though?
It's just the internet world. I don't think there's a fix, John. I don't know that there is. I think.
But how does it go? How does it go for 6 months? No issues, and then all of a sudden, I've been an Alexa thing where you pop on whatever. I listen to Sirius. Sometimes NFL race, sometimes it's comedy.
I think they do a pretty good job actually on there.
Yeah, whatever. But and it'll just drop like every 2 hours or so, and then pop back on. I've been having these little drops, and when you're doing a show, it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I just upgraded when I moved into this new place. I just upgraded mine. I went to the other one, the other company. I don't even name both of them, but I went to the other one. I used to be on the one you're on. Now I went to the other one because apparently there's a better one here. It's been pretty good. But I am wired up and I'm right next to it, so I think that's an advantage. Roseman says,
I'm telling you, look at search John Mulaney Delta Airlines. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll look it up after the show. I'll get more cultured, John. You've helped me get more cultured. I'll do that after the show. All right, John. Little defensive talk coming in. Everybody has their own expectation for the defense. A lot of fans believe the defense can be one of the best in the league. You are somebody that before it became more popular in Philly to call Vic Fangio the best coordinator in football, you were calling him the best coordinator in football. I remember before the Super Bowl, his first year here, Many were saying, including myself, well, is Spags actually better than Vic Fangio? He's got more, more trophies on the mantle and things of that nature. I think Vic's obviously proven his worth now. What are the John McMullen realistic expectations for what will be the Eagles' defense this year? I think, similar to you think that the running game needs to get going and first down needs to be better on offense. I think the defense needs to be great again for this team to have a chance to go the distance this year. Now, that's not to say the offense can't pick up their slack, but I think the defense needs another dominant year. What's your expectation?
Yeah, they definitely do. I kind of chuckled at that Spag stuff at the time.
You did.
I was like, hey, come on, guys, get out of Philadelphia. That was a very Philadelphia-centric belief, still is. Like I said, what gives it away, and that I always say it's Kyle on offense, Big on defense, Kyle Shanahan. How many people copy you? That's what gives it away. And half the league is playing a Kyle Shanahan version. It's really Mike Shanahan, but Shanahan version of offense. About half the league is playing the Big Fangio style of defense. So that gives it away. But the strength of this team has been for a while. It took people a while to figure that out as well because of all the big names on offense and all the big salaries on offense. The strength of this team has been defense basically since Vic got here. We didn't know it early because you were coming off the Sean Desai, Matt Patricia disaster. So there was no expectation that the Eagles would be near the top of the league in defense, and they ended up being number one. Think about that turnaround. But ever since he got here, it has been the strength of the team. And I think it took a while for people to recognize that. I think they now realize it, for obvious reasons. Vic is great, but most of it has to do with the talent, and he'd be the first to tell you that. I mean, you have all pro level players at all three levels, which is nice. And there's no reason. A lot of things got to go right, starting with health, to be number one. So you're never going to project, they're going to be number one. And the year they were number one, it was those old school rankings don't even matter anyway. But the year they were number two and they lost the Super Bowl, they were not the number one by, I think, 8 total yards. That's all it was. So really doesn't matter, but they're good. It's just a matter of how good. And part of that is the offense as well. One of the reasons they took a little bit of a dip was just because they were on the field so much and just because they were worn down because the offense couldn't extend drives. So it's a complimentary game. But when you have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Moro Ajomo and, Zach Pawn and Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, that's an unbelievable foundation. The drafting has been tremendous. And then you're adding Jonathan Grenard. You're adding Jahad Campbell's a full-time starter. And you're adding Reek Woolen. The talent level's off the charts on the deep. The talent on the defense is what people thought the talent was on the offense. That's how good they are on defense from a personnel standpoint. So, yeah, if they don't have a really good season, it would be really disappointing.
With camp starting this week, John, who are the sights set on? I mean, is it Cooper and Quinyon? Because you're almost like, I don't want to be the pessimist here, but you're almost like waiting for them to show that they're human in terms of they've ascended so quick in the NFL. You don't see that very often. Both of them. You have Carter. I think Campbell stepping into the role at linebacker is a big deal. Vic's obviously had a great run with linebackers. Who is it, John, to you that you're really going to be watching to see how well they play and whether they either turn the corner or continue on how good they are. Who's sticking out to you this year from a defense?
Well, the new guys, I think, the upside is so high with McMullen, but there's concerns, and I think everybody's forgotten about those concerns. So you have to see, does the undisciplined stuff show up? If that shows up, Vic's not going to be happy. And, so he's got to grow. How does Grenard fit in? I think it's going to be great, but just because I think it's going to be great doesn't mean it is going to be great. So the new guys, most notably, with Quinion, a little bit of what you were saying showed up against San Francisco in the playoffs. Remember early in that game, he did not play well. And then he bounced back in the second half. I don't worry about Quinion and Cooper. That, to me, is an example of, all right, he did struggle. He rarely struggles, and he bounced back. That's a very positive sign. And, Cooper playing safety, that's interesting. Jihad, as you mentioned. I think people are going to be forgetting about Nakobe Dean quickly. But it's all got to develop. It's all got to develop on the field. But this defense is so good. This defense is what people thought the offense was 2 years ago. Just lights out play everywhere. Now, Jalen Carter's got to bounce back. But Jordan Davis, turned the corner. You still have Morrow for one more year. Now you add Grenard to Smith and Hunt. Zach Bond is unbelievable. You got 3 top-tier corners. The only issue is at safety, and, Coop's going to play a little bit of safety. Obviously, you're talking about 10 maybe snaps a game on average. But that at least helps a little bit. And Marcus Epps should be able to hold down the fort from a traffic standpoint. But you'd like to get better there. But I'll tell you what, that front seven, that might be the best front seven in the NFL and the deepest.
I think you might be right, John, in terms of the defense. I do think, though, this year, in order for the defense to reach the level that we expect them to reach, they'll need a little help from the offense. And what I mean by that is it's hard to be as good of a defense as you want to be when you're always on the field, when your offense is leading the league in 3 and outs, when you can't convert, when your offense is always in 3rd and long. I think that makes things harder. If they can get a little help from that offense, I think they're going to be – I think they have the chance to be the best defense in football. Now, that's obviously lofty, but I do think if the offense gives them a little bit of help, their ceiling will be even higher than what it already is.
Oh, yeah, if they can actually extend a drive here and there, keep the snap counts down. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the reasons they were 13th, I think, in the NFL last season, but 8th or 9th in efficiency. So they were more efficient than the numbers indicated because they were always on the field because there's so many 3 and outs. Yeah, so, it is a complimentary game that's not made up by Nick Sirianni. And the offense has got to be better. I think everybody understands that. Maybe get LeBron in as one of the tight ends. He can probably do it.
Yeah.
By the way, LeBron's going to play point guard.
I like
41 years old, and he's probably
crazy,
he'll be a top 5 point guard.
I think that's great.
He'll play
LeBron is a facilitator at this age. I think it's awesome. But we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see what the Birds look like. We got Caden Steele coming up. Going to be exciting with camp right around the corner. John, somebody that you've convinced me on is Jihad Campbell. You've obviously given some of the history this offseason of Vic's work with linebackers. That's kind of how he's that's really his main position, or it was his main position. And now you have a player that just has such great athletic ability, upside, and talent. And Vic Fangio has kind of, been able to get his hands on him. I think it's going to be a sight to be seen. I'm very optimistic on what Jahad Campbell can be for this Eagles team this year.
Yeah, he's wearing 11 now. So enjoy that.
That's right. Yeah. Wow, John went jersey number on me. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I think it was interesting because of AJ and how quickly they said, yeah, we'll give you 11. Because he did wear 30. I think he wore both. I don't know. I think he wore both at Alabama, but he ended up as 30. I don't know. You're the Alabama guy.
I think he was 30. Yeah, he was 30. No, was he 11?
I think
he was. Wait, what'd you say?
I think he was both. I think
he was both. Yeah, he was both.
But I think he ended with 30, but I'm not sure.
Alabama.
And now he started at 30 here, and now he's going to be 11. So I don't know. For all the numbers, people.
There you go.
But we'll talk to him eventually, and he'll tell us why he chose the number. But yeah, I mean, he's incredibly gifted. Just huge, long. He's like 6'3", but he's got a 6'8" wingspan. I talk about it all the time. One of the things to be a quarterback, you talk about layering throws. That's a big thing you look for when you're scouting quarterbacks. Can he layer throws between the second and third level? Safeties are playing the parking lots now, partially because of Vic's impact on the game. So a lot of times you have to layer the ball in between the linebackers dropping and in between in front of the safeties who are coming up. And it ain't easy when you got a big 6'8" giant length guy in the middle of the field. And I think Campbell, that was the most impressive part, because you can talk about athletes, but when it comes to coverage in the NFL, there's so much zone coverage or man match coverage now. Like you got to have a high football IQ. Like you just can't put out an athletic guy and say, all right, go cover. He's athletic, so he can cover him. Doesn't work that way. And Jahad was just from day one, and he ended up being the 5th best coverage linebacker in football, according to PFF. Take it for what it is, but he's just a natural at it. I remember that play, they call it running the rail in Tampa 2, where you're responsible for the tight end down the seam.
Yeah.
And I forget who that was, but he just locked up the guy. He was running 35, 40 yards down the seam.
Yeah, that's a level of athleticism that you really don't get often at the linebacker position. I can't wait to see what Vic does with it.
Yeah. And ironically, the one disappointing part of his game was when they tried to put him on the field, because they didn't want to take him off the field, and they just wanted Jacoby back on, and they said, well, let's get him some reps on the defensive line as an edge player, and he didn't play well, which was a little bit of a disappointment. But other than that, like, I firmly believe he would have been defensive rookie of the year if he played the whole season, but we'll never know. But those first 7 games I think he started, he was off the charts. And that's one of the few things I will criticize Vic for, even though he doesn't give a shit. But, I can't take that guy off the field. Can't do it.
Can you make the argument that the defense did get better then?
I don't think it did. I think it's all about because he blitzed better. I don't think it
better
did.
against the run too. I mean, all the games Eagles lost last year, they did get throttled in the run. So the run defense was a little bit of a problem.
I don't think he was. I don't think he was. I mean, just again, PFF people are gonna when it tells their story, they love it. When it doesn't, Jahad was 38th out of 93 in run support.
You think he played Dean because he thought he was better, right? You don't think he played him because he favored.
Well, yeah, he and loyal. By the way, Jacoby Dean.
No, he doesn't do that though. Vic always plays who, at least from what I've seen, he always plays the best guy.
If you watch the film, Jacoby Dean was 90 of 93 in run defense. Like, I don't know what people are talking about. Literally don't know what they're talking about. Like, it just wasn't, he was splashy. He was tremendous as a pass rusher. When he would blow up fullbacks or running backs, nobody has a fullback. As a run defender, he didn't have a great year. It's just a perception. But to your point about Vic, yeah, Vic thinks he brought, and he talked about leadership as well, and some of that stuff, and football IQ, and all of that is real. And veteran coaches tend to like veteran players, and they don't like young guys because they're waiting for the shoe to drop. But I'm telling you, Jahad Campbell was better than the Kobe Dean. And Caden's going to be up, and he'll tell you the opposite.
Yeah,
he'll tell you what you want to hear.
I mean, it did feel like we got one super chat, then we'll get to Caden and we'll ask him that. Here's Dill Locke. What's up, Dill? $20 super chat. Thank you, brother. Start of the training camp. 26, guys. 26 NFL teams report for training.
Everybody,
camp.
All 32.
Basically all of them, right?
Yeah.
26 teams today, and a couple have already reported, so that might be all of them. John might be right about that. Dill Locke, thank you for the $20 super chat, man. We appreciate it. He says this: nothing better than having two twin boys do in less than 8 weeks. King James on the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Eagles are gearing up to start the season. Let's go. Now that's a Philly fan on cloud nine, Johnny Mac.
LeBron,
congrats on the twin boys, by the way.
Yeah. Who are the miserable LeBron people? I want to hear from them.
You already heard one, Brian.
Well, we heard a couple of them yesterday. Pumpers one.
Flexen and Steppins, a miserable LeBron.
Yeah, he's a miserable.
We got a couple.
Those people need some sunshine, man. Woof. Woo! How do you get upset by that?
Yeah. By the way, for $4 million freaking dollars. I mean, not that matters, but it does a little bit. I mean,
but he's living it. He's going to live in New York. Oh, God forbid. I worry about the helicopter rides, but other than that,
yeah. I saw the meme. Somebody's like, LeBron, don't get on the helicopter, obviously, because of the tragedy that happened with Kobe Bryant. But I don't care where LeBron lives. He's rocking a Sixer jersey, John. That's good for me, my friend. Let's go to our main man, Caden Steele, set to join us right here on Birds 365 as the Eagles report to training camp, and they will go to their first practice tomorrow. Caden will be in the building. Follow him on X. Read all his work at nj.com. Caden, looking good, fresh haircut, ready to go for the training camp, my friend. How you doing this morning on a Tuesday edition?
Doing good. Football's back, and I'm excited. We're here officially.
Football. Are you taking a helicopter down to the Jefferson Health Training Complex?
Might just have to.
Yeah, you're right about that. The traffic could get untenable, especially on Phillies days, but we'll get through it. All right, you heard. We'll start there. We got a lot of training camp stuff, but we were having that Jahad Campbell, Nakobe. I can't figure people out, Gabe. I mean, it wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. The blitzing was phenomenal. That's what people get enamored by the high. Oh, he ran over the running back. All right. He's getting blown off. He was on the field when they were getting blown off the field by the Chicago Bears. I don't get it. Tell me what I'm missing. Pro Football Focus. Everybody hates it when it doesn't agree with them. Had him 90 of 93 as run defenders and run support. Jahad Campbell was a better football player than the Kobe Dean last year. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I can't tell you for certain that you're wrong. I think the thing that could be understated, I do think the loss of Nakobe's leadership, his smart,
I agree with
his smarts and like his ability to get everyone in the right place. That obviously Vic trusted, and it's one of the reasons that he was in there. You mentioned the blitzing ability. I do think he had a pretty good year last year. I mean, obviously it wasn't like an all-pro type season where the Eagles felt like they couldn't afford to lose him. They have confidence in Jahad. And I thought Jahad was good for the first half of the season for the most part, especially in coverage. He could do some stuff that most linebackers in the league.
Oh, he was unbelievable. Who did he run that rail against in the cover two? What? I can picture it, but I forget who it was.
I think it was Brevin Spanford, like the Cowboys tight end. Like
it's like 30 yards down the field. He's just running with the guy, man.
Yeah.
He's got like a 6'8" wingspan. He's tough to throw over.
His ceiling is, I mean, physically, he's just way more gifted than Jakobi. And I think if he can grow into, some of the leadership stuff, and if he can continue to mature and evolve in terms of like understanding what position he has to be in, where he has to be in, I think that's the biggest thing for him. But if those things click and the game slows down and he feels comfortable, I do think the natural athleticism will take over for Jihad. And I think in the long run, he'll be a better player than Jakobi because there's just more there. Like Jakobi's undersized and he's in a way kind of like overachieved. He's overcome injuries and I thought he played well last year. I'm not saying that loss will be necessarily easy to overcome. And for whatever reason, Vic felt more comfortable with Jakobi, and maybe it had more to do with the intangible aspects that he's just been around longer. He's seen more. And I think that's the part that where maybe Jihad's a little farther behind, but physically and more upside, it's Jihad far and away. So if those things click, I don't think the Eagles are going to look back, 2 years from now, regretting letting go of Nakobe Dean, even though he was a good Eagle and he was great in that locker room.
Yeah, I love Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
I love him to death. But if I'm being honest, I think they're going to be better at that position. But we'll see how it shakes out.
I'm definitely excited for what Campbell's going to do for sure. That doesn't mean I think Nakobe wasn't a great player, but I do think Jihad has a huge upside, and Vic is the best person to get it out of him.
Yeah, and he wasn't even supposed to be there when they drafted him last year. I mean, we forget he was considered like a consensus like top 15 player in that class. I mean, he has a chance to be one of the best linebackers in the NFL, where I feel like Nakobe's pretty close to like maxing his ceiling as like a really solid starting linebacker who's a really destructive blitzer, and he's useful in other areas. But I don't see this high-end top 5 linebacker ceiling for Nakobe. Where like Jihad, if you told me 2 years from now he was the second, third, or maybe even the best linebacker in football, I wouldn't be shocked because he's just so athletically gifted. He has everything that you want: size, speed. If everything clicks, he should be one of the better linebackers in the league because it's just there. So I don't think the Eagles are losing sleep over, losing Nakobe Dean in free agency. That said, if Jihad, struggles and we've seen some physically gifted linebackers not always work out.
Oh yeah, Devin White.
I mean, even like I'm not saying this guy hasn't worked out, but like and then watching Bears games, like Tremaine Edmonds is super gifted, and he's a good player, but he's not like elite at the top of the league linebacker. I mean, so we've seen guys that have the physical gifts that haven't fully panned out. So we'll see on Jihad, but I'm excited about Jihad. I think he's one of the players I'm most excited to see this season at the beginning.
Who else on the defensive side of the ball, real quick, Hayden? I mean, you're going to camp this week, obviously. I mean, a lot of established great players in that defense. Who else are you looking to see on the defense? Who else are you watching to see how they're progressing, developing, getting better, trying to win a spot? What's jumping out to you on the defensive side of the ball heading into training camp?
Yeah, I think the guy that, along with Jihad, the second-year player, is Drew Makuba, because the responsibility is going to have to increase, somewhat. Because I'm a little unsure of the other safety spot next to him, whether that's going to be Marcus Epps or Michael Carter, whoever it is, it's probably going to be a slight downgrade from what Reed Blankenship brought last year at safety. And I think they're going to need him to play better than he did last year. He was, coming on towards the end before the injury. All the coaches kind of, Vic's pointed that out. Other coaches have pointed that out, talking this offseason. Like, the last 2 or 3 weeks before he got hurt in that Dallas game with that freak injury with his leg, he was starting to figure things out. But before that, I mean, there was coverage lapses. He was making mistakes, and which is what you expect out of a rookie. But he also lost some valuable reps, at the end of the year where he could have continued building on that momentum. So I want to see him in training camp not make a ton of mistakes. And I also want to see him continue to build on what impressed people last year and what impressed people when he was coming out as a prospect, which is his instincts and his ability to pick off passes and be in the right position and have a nose for a football. So I want to see the type of playmaker that he's going to develop into, and then see if the mistakes he can continue to kind of limit as he gets more reps in camp. And he's going to be pivotal this year. We talk about this cornerback room. It's awesome, but if there's one weakness in this defense, in this secondary in general, it's the safety position. But if he can elevate his game and be an above average starter, I think that concern will be a lot less.
Yeah, you know what I like about Drew Caden is he doesn't, evidently Vic was pretty hard on him after that Tampa game, and he doesn't do the woe is me thing. Like, he takes the hard coaching and he accepts it and he tries to get better. So I think it's all positive for him. He's comfortable in space. You love that with a safety. Most safeties get matched up with receivers and they kind of panic. And he's comfortable. So I think he's a great fit for Vic. Vic's taking it. When Vic's hard on you, that's a good thing because that means he thinks he can be a good player. So I think all the signs are pretty positive with Drew Makuba. Now, everybody follow Caden on X. He's going to be there every day at Caden_Steele19NJ.com. You asked, what are the biggest questions going into camp or the things you're most curious to learn? So I'm turning it back on you. What are you most curious to learn about this Eagles team going into training camp?
Obviously, the first thing is what this offense looks like. I'm sure as they install the playbook more, we'll get a little bit more of a feel. I mean, they're not going to reveal everything. And obviously in preseason, they're going to kind of, they're not going to show their cards. I truly don't know how much we're going to learn until the first month or first 5 games of the season about this offense. But I'm curious, kind of what they show on offense, kind of what are some of the wrinkles that they try to practice. And offensively, sticking on that side, I want to see Mekhi Lemon. We didn't see him much in the spring. We really saw him in rookie minicamp. What does he look like now that he's healthy? It appears that he's going to be ready for the start of camp. Can he really slide into that number 2 role across from Devontae Smith? Because there is no real worry about Devontae Smith being able to fill a ton of production. But what can we expect out of Mekhi Lemon as a rookie? Does it look natural? Is he having good practices? Does it seem easy to him? I want to see what the adjustment period looks like and how he succeeds in camp. He's one of the players I'm most excited to watch. And I'm curious. I think a lot of this offense, a lot of the success is going to have to depend on another wide receiver stepping up, whether it's him or Wicks. And then the offensive line. I'm curious, just generally. I mean, we saw a little bit in minicamp and OTAs, but how are Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson moving around? Do they seem healthy? I think it's going to be pivotal for this team to be good this year. They're going to have to get better play out of their offensive line. We saw Cam Jurgens talk right before the summer about how he's feeling healthy. I'm just curious, how those guys look up front. So those are the real things I'm watching on offense. And then on defense, I have less curiosity because I feel like we know kind of what we're getting there. But I guess maybe less curiosity, but more just excited. I'm just excited to continue watching Tyreek Woolen and how he plays. He was the story of the spring. Every single person has something positive to say. What does he look like in camp? If he continues to build on it, I think there's real reason to believe this Eagles defense. I mean, it's going to be hard to throw against them, and I'm excited just to watch him.
Yeah, Reek, real quick, just a follow up
good.
on that, Zander. Reek he was so good in the spring. He was so good. How much you talked about Mekhi? We only got to see it very brief, and then he was down with the hamstring. Dontavian, some of those drops, the concern coming from Green Bay, didn't always catch the ball cleanly. But we saw. I don't think you were there for the big AJ Bradbury, clash when their first year. It was just fun to watch. Bradbury was still a very good player. It was just fun to watch. Then you had AJ and Slay. It's just fun to watch. And then when Quinion was a rookie, they said, go cover AJ to try to get him up to speed. We know what happened there. That was just awesome to watch. And I started to think, well, was Reek Woolen that good because he's that good, or is it because the receivers aren't that good? That's my concern.
Yeah. Though my only counterpoint to that is like obviously it wasn't at every rep because Quinion was, when Devontae was out. But he had some nice reps against Devontae where where he you could just see the athleticism take over and the recovery speed and things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, it's not the same as it was, a few years ago or even last year when you're seeing great on great. We don't know what Mekhi Lemon's going to be yet, even though I have high hopes. I like him coming out, but we really don't know what he's going to be. And the same with Dontavian Wicks and Marquise Hollywood Brown and all those guys. So it's definitely going to be different. But
the second part, real quick, the second part for me is, like Seattle's a really smart organization. John Snyder, he might be, if you don't think Howie's the best GM in football, it might be John Snyder. He's in the conversation. One of their underlings just became a GM in Minnesota. Everybody, you look at their roster and it looks like the Eagles. They're just building and building and building. And they said, we're going to go forward with Josh Jobe. We're going to let this guy. Well, I'm still a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah. And I think it's a fair criticism. And I think he's even talked about it himself. Vic's been asked about it and how he even brought it up, at the owners meeting. I mean, there's a reason that he had to settle for a 1-year deal. And I think when you watch him, the physical ability during practices and like I said, the recovery speed, the size, he's just so fluid for someone so that big. He's not supposed to be able to move that way. I think from a pure skill set perspective, I don't have worries about his ability. To be able to lock up, even some of the best wide receivers in this league. You saw it in his rookie season. He was one of the best rookies in the NFL. But the problem with Tyreek Woolen has been the consistency, and it has less to do with, what he's able to, do on the field with his talent. It's more to do with the mental side of the game. He's talked about that, the maturity and not cutting out the little things, the little mistakes he shouldn't be making, the penalties after plays and stuff like that. And I feel like, despite, he was still, pretty good in Seattle. It seems apparent that they just grew tired of the extracurricular stuff after the plays. Like we saw best examples, the NFC Championship game when he drew the penalty where, he's pointing at the Rams bench. And I think Mike McDonald, it seems like I haven't covered him, so I don't know him too well, but he seems like a no-nonsense type of coach, and he just grew tired of that. They still obviously put him on the field because he's a gifted player, but maybe they decided they would rather go with the safer guy that they know will do things right, will put them in less potential trouble, and they went with Josh Jobe. Whether that's the right decision or not, I'm not sure. I think I would rather still bet on Tyreek Woolen.
So would I.
I think, especially with Vic. I mean, I think Vic kind of, gets that stuff more in line than others. Maybe I'm giving Vic too much credit, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and John said it earlier. I mean, Vic doesn't sugarcoat his opinions on free agents in the past when he doesn't necessarily like a guy. He didn't like Bryce Huff. Yeah. He didn't like Adoree Jackson last year when he was asked about in training camp. When people asked Vic, or we asked Vic this year about Tyreek Woolen,
he was glowing. Yeah,
he liked his film, and I think Vic will. I think there's a chance of scenery. I mean, it's also Tyreek Woolen in his mid-20s. Still a chance that he ends up, realizing like, holy crap, I just lost out on a 4-year, $80 million contract because I can't, stop talking crap after plays and stuff. It might a light bulb moment for him might have happened after he hit free agency. I think there's a chance this change of scenery could help him. And I think Seattle could look a little silly, 2 years from now, because I think Josh Jobe has a very limited ceiling. Where I think if Tyreek Woolen, if everything is right and it clicks and he can mature, I think he's got the talent to be a top 10 corner in the NFL. So the Eagles could look very smart and Seattle could look, regretful at some point, even though they do have a good, general manager and a good team overall.
Caden, what type of impact do you think he will have, and then what type of impact do you think he needs to have? And that is Sean Mannion on Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Sean has a pretty extensive quarterback background, never played at the level in the NFL that Jalen Hurts has reached, obviously, but does have a lot of experiences in some of the more prolific offenses in the game. What type of impact do you think he needs to have and will have on Jalen Hurts this year?
Yeah, I mean, he has to get Jalen Hurts to play better, and that doesn't mean necessarily the passing offense, has to turn into this high prolific, throw the ball 35 times a game, but it's got to be more efficient. I think it's the biggest problem. I think we all look at the numbers being low last year and the previous year before that. But if they're throwing the ball 20 times a game and everything's efficient and the run game's good, I don't think it's a problem. I think it just hasn't been efficient. There's too many laws. There's too many periods where just the passing offense dies for quarters at a time. And I think for Sean Mannion, I think the most important thing, and I think the thing that's good for Jalen Hurts is he emphasizes the fundamentals of quarterbacks. The people I've talked to, and he mentioned it also when he talked. We talked to him that one time this spring, is footwork. And making sure everything's in rhythm. I think he's going to harp on the fundamentals and get back to the basics with Jalen Hurts. And then ideally, you want to see him make things easier on Jalen Hurts. I don't think Jalen Hurts has been perfect these last couple of years. Obviously, he's been up and down, but I don't think they've given him the necessary structure on offense for some easy throws. I think that's the most important thing, making things easy, getting back to the fundamentals and making sure his footwork is good and making sure that the passing offense, because if they're going to run more of this West Coast system, everything has to be timing and rhythm. He has to make sure everything is on point, like his feet are lining up so that throws aren't behind. Everything has to be on rhythm. So I think it's the most important thing. Can you get Jalen Hurts to play in more structure, in a better rhythm with better footwork and be more precise and more less hesitant? And just, I think that's the most important thing, is just let him see things better and just work on his footwork. And if he can do that, I think we can see a better version of Jalen Hurts, because I think we've seen that confident version before. It's just not always there. And I think Sean Mannion could do that potentially. We'll see.
All right. That's where I want to stay with you, Caden. Sean Mannion. Not about Jalen Hurts. This is just about Sean Mannion. I think you saw the Florio stuff with Kyle Shanahan, the car accident. He's killing the San Francisco. Oh, you should have known. You should have reported. He's got no idea. He's just sitting and aggregating. Don't know what happened. But, if I were to self-scout us, the Eagles guys, I would say, you know what? And I did this. I wrote about this last week. I go, we really normalized this hire quickly. From where it started, which was got to get experience, got to get play calling experience, former head coach Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll, to where it ended after 17 people. Third-year coach, no play calling experience, 1 year as a positional coach. He's calling plays for the Philadelphia stinking Eagles. Did we normalize this way too quickly?
Yeah, in a way, I think we did. Because from an outside perspective, and if you don't look at his impressive background, working with all these different schemes, and if you don't, take that into account, and you just look at his age and his lack of experience, it's a gamble, and it's glaring. And I there's reasons to be excited. There's reasons to have hope, because of his experience and how as a backup quarterback and working in all those, Shanahan West Coast, like systems, and how people talk about him, how he's a genius. And this is not even just, the Jordan Maia lot of quote, but people who've worked with him in other places, you see there's such high praise. You've seen the track record of this coaching tree. There's various guys that have had big success, whether it's, Liam Cohen or Kevin O'Connell or Clint Kubiak now getting a head coaching opportunity. The list goes on and on. There's been a lot of guys that have had success, and this offense has generally, maybe not, no one's been able to replicate what Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan's done, but they've generally, the copycats have had some success. So I think there's reason to be hopeful. But at the same time, he's never done this. And then at the end of the year, what we were able to point back to was, well, Brian Johnson didn't work because it was his first time calling plays. Obviously, there's a lot of talent in this offense. He wasn't ready for that position. You kind of felt the same way about Kevin Patullo. He was in over his head. Now you think, you go for the veteran candidate. And I do think that's what they preferred at the beginning of their search. But those guys didn't come here. They had to pivot, and now they took a massive gamble. So have we put too much confidence that Sean Mannion's definitely going to work? I think it's possible. I'm not there yet. I'm intrigued. I'm excited to watch it. But is there a chance that this completely fails and they look back and they wish they went with someone more experienced? It's in the realm of possibilities, and they need it to work, because if it doesn't work, this team's going to hit a wall again. And the defense is good, and that might be able to win them 10, 11 games again, but they're not going to get to where they want to go. And it's going to be the same cycle over again with this offense holding them back. So it's got to work. And it's a massive gamble compared to going with someone that's more experienced. So, yeah, there's a chance. I'm open to the idea that Sean Mannion will be really good, but I'm also open to the idea that, like, this just might not work at all.
And it's not exactly comparable, but it was far more obvious in 2023 when they hired Sean Desai, and all of a sudden Matt Patricia's in, and we're like, what? Matt Patricia? And no, it's got nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with it. And they're thinking about making a change when they're 10-1 or whatever the hell they were that season. But and they ultimately pulled the trigger. Did they hedge their bets on Sean Mannion by hiring Josh Grizzard? Now, I think Jared Johnson was just a favor because he's close with Nick. And last thing you want to do is be out of the profession when you're a young rising coach. But is Josh Grizzard Matt Patricia?
I don't think so. One, because Josh Grizzard did not have a ton of success.
He doesn't have a ton of experience either, but he's got some.
Yeah, 1 year. But I'm not going to blame him solely. I think Tampa Bay's offense was, I think it's a little overrated. I think, Baker gets a little too much.
Caden, but let me just say, Baker Mayfield. Have you watched Quarterback on Netflix?
I've seen some of the clips go viral on Twitter, but I
think people forget, like, Baker Mayfield was the leading MVP candidate through like 6 weeks. And then Mike Evans got hurt and they had a bunch of injuries. Like, they were humming early on with Josh Grizzard. I'm just throwing that in there. They were good. Like, Baker was really good the first 5, 6, and then it just kind of all fell apart with the injuries.
Yeah.
Just throwing that in there.
That's fair. And maybe he was a scapegoat. I still don't view it that way. I view it more as the Eagles in the last few years when they've lost Kellen Moore, or dating back to when they lost Shane Steichen. They didn't have, they probably want to say that back then, but they didn't have a great succession plan. And I think they realize that now. And if I truly believe, and I think it's more of a sign that they want to run a system like this, whether how much of it they can do and what it exactly looks like, I'm not sure yet, but they want to run a completely different systems. They want it to look different. And if Sean Mannion has success, which could happen, it's one of the possibilities, and he's hired this year as after the season as a new head coach elsewhere, and let's say this offense is great and he leaves, I don't think they want to be left in the position where they don't have a successor on staff and they have to go out searching for another coach on a different branch, on a different staff. I do believe this is more of a succession plan where they've seen Grizzard play calls before. He's familiar with the system as well, and he would be the natural replacement in-house for Sean Mannion. I view it more that way than, they're fearing Sean Mannion's not going to do that well. And then if it all goes really bad, then they can pivot and go to Josh Grizzard. I don't think they're going in thinking that way. Could that happen? Maybe, but I think this is more about getting ready for Sean Mannion to potentially leave if this thing works.
Obviously, Sean doesn't have the level of experience that Kellen Moore had, but aren't there some similarities here in the hires? I remember before the 2024 season, the big conversation that we were having was the oncoming pro-style offense. And Kellen Moore, who is as experienced as he is, ultimately had to abandon that after 4 weeks, maybe because of other factors. But that's where my trepidation comes in a little bit. Like we're concerned on Mannion's experience, which makes sense. But even when you had a super experienced guy who was responsible for 2 number 1 offenses in Dallas, they still had to kind of abandon the philosophy. Now they're different, but do you see any similarities there, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the expectation that this offense is definitely going to, be this thing that from the outside, what we've seen these other offenses look like. I think there's a chance that maybe they're going to have to dial this back in some sense. I mean, Nick Sirianni's always talked about it. They do whatever it takes to win the game that week. And I think someone asked him when we talked about him in the summer, would you be willing to I don't know if it was the way it was necessarily asked, but would you be willing to kind of like go through some growing pains, maybe even a loss or something like that, and continue to try to implement this offense what he wanted to be, like this ideal version. And I remember Nick's response was basically, we'll do whatever it takes to win. So, based off that week. So I think there's a chance that everyone thinks that this offense is going to be this West Coast system, this high flying thing. And then that it's, taken back a level and it evolves and it changes. I think it's, somewhat similar in that regard. And then, in terms of Kellen, I mean, you probably felt better about Kellen because he's called plays before and he had success. I mean, people forget.
He had great offenses, Kellen Moore.
He really was a scapegoat for Mike McCarthy there in Dallas when that defense wasn't good and Mike McCarthy had to save his job, so he just got rid of Kellen. And now you're with the Chargers, I don't think it wasn't as good, but circumstances.
Still good.
It was still good.
Solid. Yeah.
So I see some similarities in that regard.
I think the worst offense he ever had was this one here from a passing perspective.
This was it definitely his work. I mean, you saw what he was able to do, and again, it's a small thing that we got to see last year, but what he was able to do with Tyler Shuck. And Tyler Shuck looked pretty damn good for a rookie quarterback. And there's hope with the Saints that he could become even better, that the Saints could potentially win the NFC South. So we'll see. I mean, if Sean Mannion comes in, he has the best ideas in the world, and this offense is creative and it's fun and all those different things, but Jalen Hurts doesn't play well, the offensive line doesn't play well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, ultimately, I am a believer that personnel is the most important thing. I think a scheme can elevate, and I think we talked about this one time.
You are correct. Personnel first.
So the personnel 100%. Doesn't play well, it won't matter, and this offense won't look the way it is. So I think Jalen, there's a chance he plays better in this offense, and he does end up running it well. But if he doesn't, I mean, and the run game's bad, I don't know. I mean, it's a tough position, honestly, just thinking about that Sean Mannion's in. Like, this seems like a make or break year, potentially for, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni. I mean, like, there's a lot of pressure around this organization from outside and internal. I mean, this organization has really, really high standards.
But he's a 34-year-old guy. He's not going to be an offensive coordinator anywhere else. So why not take a chance on yourself? Bet on yourself. Agree from his
perspective. Yeah. I mean, I can't blame him for taking this job, but it's not an easy position.
No,
to be in at all. I mean, and this year feels like it's going to sway one way or the other. Like, Jalen Hurts is either going to play really well in this offense, and they're going to give him an extension, and Nick Sirianni's tenure is going to continue, and they're going to evolve with this new offense, and here we go. Or it's going to be, man, they're 10-7 again, and they're losing in the first round of the playoffs. And is Nick Sirianni definitely coming back? Is Jalen Hurts the quarterback of the future? That's a weird position to be in.
That's probably the worst. That's probably the one spot you don't want to be in. The exact same. Just a little bit over 500, maybe one and done in the playoffs. Then you're in purgatory and you're like, oh, what do we do? Yeah. We don't want to pay $60 million for that.
Why does it feel like that's the most likely to?
Yeah. And for as good as this organization is, I mean, the one thing that they don't have the patience for it, in my opinion. It's just because there's such high standards, and Howie Roseman is such a good GM, and the way he's built this roster, and Jeffrey Lurie has these Super Bowl expectations every year. I truly don't believe that they allow for significant growth out of these first-time offensive coordinators. Like if this was somewhere else, Sean Mannion could learn for 2 years and have some ups and downs, and it doesn't happen here.
Does not happen.
It
will
in a
not
way,
happen.
that's good because they want to win Super Bowls every year, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. But like, this is not a developmental. Let's learn for a couple of years. Let's have some early exits in the playoffs. Then we hope that you take off as one of the best OCs in the league. It's like you better be that evil wizard genius now, or
I don't. To your point, and it's at Caden_Steele19. Make sure you follow Caden on X because he's going to have lots of updates down from training camp every day. NJ.com. Read them there. Get it done. I'll pick you up in the helicopter tomorrow if you need it. But to your point, like, there's no way Sean Mannion's going to be here long term. There's no way.
Oh no!
He's either going to hit a home run, he's going to be a head coach, or he's getting his ass. He's out. There's no way. Maybe. But think about it from this perspective, Caden. If you move on from the head coach and you bring in another head coach, he's going to want his own guy as offensive coordinator. So that's a roadblock. The only way is if you say, we're moving on from the quarterback. We're getting a different quarterback, but we're sticking with Nick. And Nick says, yeah, we can do this. We can run this offense now with the new quarterback. That's a very small sliver.
That's a possibility. The other alternative to him staying, if it wasn't, if he, the only other way I could see is like the Ben Johnson thing, where he has this great success, but he has these super high expectations. He wants a certain contract, a certain place to be a head coach, and he's picky. Not a lot of guys approach.
That's true. That's a good one. That's a good Ben Johnson. Yeah, but it only lasted an extra year.
Yes. So that's the only possibility. But we don't see a lot of coaches do the Ben Johnson method where they're selective and they wait. So maybe that happens and he's great and he wants to build another year. Maybe he's here 2 or 3 years. That would be the best case outcome. I just don't think that's very realistic. And I agree with you. It's either he's going out the door because it didn't work, or he's going out the door because it did really work, and then you're going to have to replace him. So they're living in this world, and part of that's because Nick doesn't, call plays anymore. They're living in this world where they're going to have to keep hitting on these OC hires. If it works for Sean Mannion, you're going to have to find the next guy, and then the next guy, and that's a hard world to live in. It's why it hasn't fully worked in these last 4 years, because you've hit on some guys and you've missed on some guys. And that's the nature of the NFL.
Yeah. But I mean, look at the best in the business, Kyle Shanahan. Okay. He hasn't won.
Yeah. I agree with
Matt LaFleur, where he's coming from. All right. Really good. Hasn't won.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell, really good. Hasn't won. What are we doing here? I don't know.
Fair. I would say the Eagles have more talent than those teams. I mean, San Fran, you can make an argument when they're healthy, but not even anymore. They've been kind of stripped down.
No, they're kind
but I think the Eagles have.
But in their prime, they were really gifted. Really gifted.
But the Eagles have more talent. Probably, I mean, Brian Flores, you could argue, but probably the best DC of that group as well. They should have more expectation.
Yeah, I go big. I always say Brian Flores is my favorite defensive coordinator to watch because he's a lunatic and he'll just do anything. But Vic is the best defensive coordinator. He's the best.
Yeah, I think that's fair to sum up. Brian Flores is more entertaining. Vic's almost so good it's boring because everything is just fundamentally sound. Yeah. And that's not the most exciting thing to watch. Like the most exciting thing to watch is Todd Bowles.
I'm actually excited. The Vikings signed Jamal Adams yesterday. Who's like, I used to love Jamal Adams when he was on the Jets and he was a difference maker and all pro, but he hasn't been that guy for years. But with Flores, I'm like, he's going to use him like a hybrid linebacker, nickel safety, positionless player. My internet's going out again. I hope you can hear me. That's going to be so interesting. He's just interesting. That's Brian Flores. He's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same exact thought. I'm like, Jamal Adams could have like a career, resuscitation in Minnesota. Like, he could be good potentially in some role. So
no doubt. Caden, one quick answer.
Yep.
Who's going to be the camp darling?
Ooh, like the Elijah Cooks of last year. Okay. There's a lot of different candidates. Let me think on this okay. I'll go Chance Campbell. They talked highly about him last year in the locker room when he was on the practice squad. I could see him having a really good camp. Stuff to really get a gauge on linebackers. Or I could see I'll throw out one more just for fun. I could see like Samori Toure because he knows the system kind of having a phenomenal camp, not making the roster, just no chance, but just having a good preseason game, like 85 yards or something for a touchdown. I'll take a dart throw at Samori Toure.
I like it. All right, Caden, we appreciate it, man. Enjoy camp. We'll be reading all your work. We appreciate you joining in today. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, there's Caden Steele joining us right here on Birds 365. Great interview there. Caden doing a great job. Looking forward to reading what he has to say. Johnny Mack, we've reached almost the end here of Birds 365. Good numbers today. Everybody's tuning back in, John, with the season starting, camp kicking off today. They report today and then practice tomorrow. So just a reminder, no 8 to 10 a.m. show tomorrow. I'll be live in the morning. We'll speak with John in the evening after he gets back from the first training camp practice. John, your final thoughts as training camp is here and set to begin, my friend. You give in your freedom card. Tank is going to have to adjust a little bit like the Eagles offense. Your final thoughts here on a Tuesday edition of Birds 365. Man, he's absolutely stone frozen. John is absolutely stone frozen. He dropped off. He didn't even hear me or answer me. It is what it is. I'm hung out to dry like a shirt on a clothesline. All right? I mean, are you kidding me? The last question, I teed it up. I made it all sound as good as possible. And boom. Done and dusted, as Ian says in the chat. Done and dusted. Cooked on a skewer. Placed on the grill and cooked too long. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Done and dusted. Oh, Keys, that's a low blow. All right. John said, F you, I'm done with your ass. All right. F you, I'm done with your ass. He might not even come back. After 10 a.m., he might be like, I'm out of here. Watch, he'll give me the text. Sorry, it's done. There it is. You guys heard it. Completely shit out on me, says John McMullen. All right. Well, we'll talk to John tomorrow at some point in the evening. I do appreciate all you guys for doing it today. It's always good. What's everybody thinking for training camp? Do I have any more supers? Brian drops me 6 joules. Brian, what's that? Like 28 cents? Come on, Brian. Come on, B-Flip. Come on, B-Flip. I don't have a lot of time on Zander time today. Some exciting things happening in the Krause world. My brother is closing on his house today, so I got to help him out with some stuff. Exciting times there. So I think that was this morning, actually, 9 a.m. So I'll be helping him out at some point today. Camp is here. Camp is here. All right. That's exciting. Original, not yet, but shh. Not yet original, but shh. That's not a bold take, my friend. I'm tipping my hand, but we won't be saying anything yet. All right. I can't believe Keys, what's up with you and your ability to take low blows? Stoked to see how the line looks in pads in a new blocking scheme. Me too, Rasputin. Mad Bird says he's ready for the season. Mad Bird, you and me both, bro. All right. Nancy says, go put some work in. Nancy, every day of my life. I love it. All right. BGG says, I'm ready to watch football. You and me both, Bird Gang Girl. Hope you're doing good. All right. Closing is annoying. My ham is cramping. Rasputin, one day I'll get there, but I haven't done it yet. All right, my friend. I know, Keith. Keith, you think I don't know this? Keith, you've been in my chat for how long? You think I don't know this by now, Keith? I remember when I dusted your ass on the post game show. Put you in a blender. You were like a smoothie on a hot summer day. Positive Prince. Not to be confused with the Positivity Bunny. Positivity Prince is here with too much negativity from the offseason. All right. Summer is flying by. Still can't believe we got LeBron. Steve, me too, brother. Steve, I saw your trip out to Tennessee. Looked sick, dude. Hope you enjoyed. Offseason flew by. I don't know, man. It felt long to me. It did fly by, though. Closing documents sticking in a dictionary. Yeah, I'm sure they are. Didn't get to see them. I'm not sure what that is. Is it your bro sound? Really? I don't think he does. I sound like my dad for sure. I know I sound like my dad. I don't know about my brother. You think my brother? Delusional. Keish, you're still in a blender. Come on, Keish. Come on, Keish. All right, folks. Love all you guys. Hit that like button. All right. Drop your comments down below. Appreciate the super chats today. All right. We needed them to ramp back up a little bit. I got some things in the works. All right. We got some things in the works. Kevin says he announced you and your wife. Yeah, he did. That was dope. That was pretty dope. I thought you were talking. That's interesting. It's funny how other people, think that. But yeah, no, that was cool. That was a cool video. That was a cool video that my brother that they got of my brother announcing us walking out of the church. So that was pretty good. But all right, folks, love all you guys. Hit that like button. Camp tomorrow. I'll be here in the morning. All right. No John in the morning. So if you hate me and you love only McMullen, don't bother checking in. All right. But I look forward to going back and forth with some of you guys tomorrow morning. And then we'll get the full Birds 365 show at some point tomorrow. I got to coordinate with John. I don't even know when it will be, guys. It might be 6 to 8. Might be 6 to 8. All right. So love all you guys. Hit that like button. See you next time, everybody.